So maybe as we are okay, I think it should be live streaming now, but whether it is or not, I am just going to get rolling with the meeting.
It says it is.
Okay, excellente. Well, once again, welcome everybody. It is wonderful to have you here again this week. We've been on a real journey together, and when I start sharing the slides, we'll kind of review some of the past soul trades that we've done. I know some of you, this is your first meeting, and some of you have kind of been here every week. We're designed as a drop-in, but it's also the kind of thing where if you want to come week after week, we sort of are progressing to see how can we use some of this Jewish wisdom to help us navigate what is just an incredibly challenging time. So using the chat, I'd love to just do a really quick check-in. You know, how are you doing this week? What is how are things going? The chat is this button at the bottom. I'm going to switch myself over to the view where I can see all of you. Not a good week. Yeah, that would not help the cause. We've had the opposite here in California. It's been really, really nice. It's been nice. At least we can go walk outside. Leslie's looking forward to community. Excellent. And for the most part, for me, it's been a pretty good week. I've been a little less, distracted than some others. Long, quiet meditation from Wendy, awesome. Carol, some reading and thinking. All right. Well, okay, well, let's now begin to get comfortable. We start every week with a meditation to help us become present, to set up a little bit of a safe space and sacred space. Once again, we'll have a chance to kind of share in an opportunity without judgment, without getting advice or feedback. Our first step, though, is to meditate and become present. So please close your eyes and get comfortable in your seat. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own speed of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. And Shema, we're listening deeply. Without judgment, without offering advice. And Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Welcome to those who joined us during meditation. It is wonderful to see you here in our weekly gathering. I am going to start our sharing the screen now. So you should be able to see some slides here. Can you see? Are these visible? Can I get like a, all right, I got a thumbs up. Thank you very much. So I want to raise a question that I brought up in the blog post this week. It's a thought which came into my head a lot over the years as I've been living in comfort, but I always would look around and say like, well, it seems like the first mission is survival, even though it's not something that we have to deal with right now. And I wanted to be able to pass that message on to my kids. But here we are now in a very different sort of challenging circumstance. So I guess I wanted to know I wanted to get some opinions from the group. Is it true? Is the first mission? You may just unmute yourself and share your thoughts.
This is Jean, and I haven't thought of it as you described it, as survival. But when you suggest that, I think the degree to which my husband and I are self-isolating, apart from the goodness for technology, in a sense, we have made a decision to survive, to not get this illness and be at high risk because of our age. So it's in a way to frame it. I haven't thought, I don't feel in danger, but I don't feel in danger because of our distancing and isolation, physical isolation.
Thank you, Jean. Wonderful to have you with us this week.
Thank you.
Other thoughts?
I agree that survival is the first priority, and I'm reminded of like what they teach codependents about. You know, if you're with your child in an airplane and the masks descend, put it on yourself first. Although you might just naturally feel like protecting your child, but you can't help anybody else unless you're okay.
Without surviving, you can't do anything else. And for me, that's my job, is to survive, is to avoid getting this illness, because I'm at such high risk that if I were to get it, the chances of my survival are not very good because of my conditions. So I'm doing a lot of, I'm being very safe. I'm not going past my front door really, which is hard, and I worry about everything that comes in this house that all my shopping angels bring me. I worry about everything because, I thought I was feeling anxious when they told me I had cancer again. That's kind of taken a back burner as long as I take my meds. So there you go.
Oh, that really puts things in perspective.
Oh, freaky.
That's, not so bad, but the food coming in the house, that causes a lot of anxiety. That's
nobody else comes in, but they leave things at my doorstep for me. Yeah. And I wear gloves and wash everything down, and it just seems crazy.
I'm new, and I don't know if you can hear me. It's interesting when you say about survival, because I have multiple sclerosis and I work with the public. And so I did have a scare with a client who contracted it, and I'm being very due diligent when I go out and do my shopping or whatever. but I guess I'm at a different place from it, you know, even though I'm younger, and do have a compromised immune system. And of course, we all don't want to get this, you know, this disease. But I guess I have faith that I'm protected.
Mm.
And you know, it's interesting. You watch the news daily and you get anxious and stuff. And so I started actually just maybe every now and then just reading a headline and seeing what the numbers are at, and just knowing that right now this is a time that we're all getting some freedom. And so instead of thinking negatively, I started thinking positively, and of all the things and that I can do to help people and stuff, and just even myself. So I've actually been even probably more happier than I normally am. So yeah, that's my take.
Wow. Thank you.
This is Uriela. Uriela, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Ariella.
Yes.
Hi, okay. It's very interesting, the title that you put up here, that the first mission is survival, because lately I think a lot about my mom who survived the camps. And the thing that I think about is, I often think, you know, how did she survive? Because I've been to those places and they did not have the nice food that I have here, or this kind of shelter, not clothes that were warm, all kind of things.
Yep.
But the way that she survived was that she chose life, and her actions were all about choosing life, even if it was just for the present moment.
Mhm.
And so I just this is really, it's a wonderful title. Thank you, Greg.
Yes.
You're welcome, and thank you. It's a wonderful point you share, because we do have choices to make. And we do have choices how we show up in every moment. And even if this is true, there's a lot of different ways that we can show up. And that's part of where we're going to be going today.
When I look at this title, Greg, I think the first mission is survival. To me, I think it's about kind of modulating your expectations for this moment. Like, it's not about thriving, it's about surviving.
Yeah.
You have to really think about that and just understand that your expectations have to be pretty flat at this time and
Yeah.
not look for too much. Yeah.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you. All right, let's, oh, sorry. Was there one more thought that I missed?
Well, I was going to say something, but I'm new, Sundari, and
Sorry, welcome.
thank you. And about a week and a half before we went into sheltering, two of my incredibly close friends died. And that was jolting. And somehow I'd set up for years work at my house, finally got it together. It started 2 weeks of a 4-month project. And then, you know, so the back is all in rubble. And it's been, today is actually the yard site of my husband. And next week, my mom. And what's amazing to me is, as thrown as I was entering into the sheltering in place, I'm really joyful now. And it's crazy. This is the first year, and usually both of them passed during Passover, and I was usually the whole month I'm kind of mopey, and I don't have any of that. It's the first year that I'm just not experiencing grief, except in doing like a Kaddish or something, it'll come up. But other than that, it's like, wow, where did it go? And so that's been like really interesting to me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, may their memories always be for a blessing.
Thank you. Nice being here today, just to get to say that to somebody who I don't know, understands.
Well, that's a good segue. That's a reminder for this whole thing started. The first session was on March 19th, where that was when really things had started to hit and the shutdowns were coming fast and furious. And I felt very isolated. And I said, we need to all come together and just have a place to talk about what's going on. Many of us are feeling isolated. And that led to a start of a whole, and we looked at a number of different soul traits. And then that started a whole journey, which is now an ongoing meeting where we're meeting every week. We're going through the order of soul traits in my book, The Spiritual Practice of Good Actions, but we've done humility, patience, enthusiasm, trust. And then today our focus is loving kindness, but it's balancing that with survival, or balancing this need to survive with loving kindness. And then for the next few weeks, we'll be doing truth and honor and gratitude. And if you want, I write a blog post every week to kind of preview the Thursday call. And if you're not on my email list, you're invited to come to AmericanMussar.com and sign up.
Lily.
But for people who've been here for some of these other calls, I'm just curious what your thoughts are when you sort of look at this journey we've taken, from humility to patience and then up through loving kindness. Have you experienced this as a journey in any way, or how has this sort of come into play for you?
I think that it's really easy, especially in times of crisis, for us to lose our connection with our values. We can say, in theory, yes, of course, we value all of these things. Who doesn't say they value, gratitude and enthusiasm? But actually taking the time to refocus on them one by one is a really good way to reconnect and make sure that, I guess, we're practicing what we preach, walking the walk, so to say. So I think that's that refocusing has been really helpful.
Thank you, Andrea. Nice to see you. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. Unfortunately, I guess on the tail end of getting better from COVID, my fibromyalgia spiked up because, autoimmune issues, but I'm on the recovery. Sorry I missed last week.
Well, I'm glad the overall direction is
trending upward, definitely.
Yeah. That is great. Any other thoughts or comments?
Well, the connection is really valuable for me because I live alone and I do solitude pretty well, but it's good to focus on what's important when you're solitary, and it's good to focus on, values, that was already said, but the connection's been really important for me, all of these different connections that I've kept during this, because I really am physically and actually quite isolated and alone, literally alone. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it's interesting that you talked about having something to focus on. I read this wonderful blog post about the counting of the Omer, which is a traditional Jewish practice that starts at Passover. And it's never something I've done before. The blog post said, well, why was this done? Well, it gave people something to do. They just crossed the Red Sea. There was all this uncertainty. And coming out of Egypt, I kept busy, counting the Omer. So I got an app and I've started doing it. I do kind of like the regularity of just every night after dinner, I get a little notification. Okay, time to count. I spend my 2 minutes saying the prayer and counting, and it helps me practice my Hebrew numbers, which is kind of a weak spot. So that's been good.
Yeah.
Part of our weekly call is that we look at one of the 4 one of the four Mussar assumptions. And the one I want to focus on this week is that we have free will, but it's not always accessible. And in the book, what I wrote about and what I think is really interesting for this week is that, so let me ask this as a question. Would you consider it free will if you're taking the path of least resistance? Is that the same kind of act as if you're not taking the path of least resistance?
Well, it's Jean again. I would consider it free will if it's done intentionally. And I've read a lot. In the beginning of this crisis, I was more inclined to be self-critical for not accomplishing anything and not being productive. I'm a retired person, so productivity in my life is somewhat different from a working person, because I can't even imagine how I got everything done when I was working as well. But there have been countless articles and meditations even available to let us forgive ourselves and intentionally kind of take a path of least resistance, not being as planful and saying it's okay. This is a time where we can derive something perhaps from changing that very inclination to have to do, to have to hurry and so forth. So I think the intention is a key part of whether that's free will or not.
Thank you. That's a wonderful point. Yeah, I love it. Thanks so much. Other thoughts?
This is Uriella again. Oh, Uriella, can I talk?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry. The part about free will that talks to me is that, especially in this last month, is that the free will for me is that I have a choice of where to put my mind. And that's for me the free will in this period. And for instance, one of the things that I decided after the Pesach Seder was to have what coined the term, my grandchildren, it's called cousins chatting time. So once a week with the older ones, the 12, 13-year-olds, we have a cousin chatting time. And then once a week for half an hour, there's a chatting time for the younger ones. And it's interesting. I thought that they wouldn't be so interesting with me on the call, but they asked me about it, and they're very eager to come on and talk. So I'm really glad. I almost gave up the idea, but then I thought, no, that's something. It's an opportunity to be in connection with them and hear what their thoughts are. And slowly they are opening up and unfolding. It's very pretty to watch. So that's free will. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add briefly some of the thoughts. Today I had a big learning. By the way, I'm reading your book, Greg, and I'm at the stage that I really don't like myself, because I thought that I'm better than I'm realizing I am. I'm not bad, but I thought I'm better than this, because now, especially with this free will, I would rewrite it for me would be like, we all have free will, but sometimes it's accessible. And it's not always. I mean, we are running mostly in my way of knowledge of psychology, and coming back from Freud, he taught us, well, actually it's an iceberg. Our consciousness is the tip of the iceberg. And so about 85% is underneath the water. You don't see it. But that's what is making the most decisions, not this top 15%. So, and I thought I'm better than that, but I'm not. Actually quite an ordinary guy who doesn't like himself, realizing I'm not that strong. And what my learning was today, that actually one of my clients said that actually our children and my grandkids, I have 2 grandkids, blessed with them, they have totally different childhood than anybody else before, because they can go out play. I cannot go visit them. I mean, the schools are down, and this is look like going to be a little bit longer than we would like to have it. So it's kind of a little bit depressing and sad to me. Thank you.
Shelley here. So it's interesting, free will. I was talking with my boyfriend today about living in the now, you know, and how we all have imprints, and how we tend to have fear, and we stay with fear because it's easier to be with fear than to have the unknown. And I was explaining to him that, you know, once you can get rid of your imprints of those fears from your childhood that you've been, you know, you've seen and you've carried all your life, I said, you start to learn how to live in the now. And I really truly do live in the now. I'm somebody that I thank the universe, God, every day for the gifts that land on my lap. And I was saying to him, you know, you can't change the past, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. All we can do is live right now. And I said, and find joy. And I said, and so instead of being affected by people who are anxious, who, you know, have their own fears that are trying to maybe put them onto you, you know, it's looking at it from a logical point of view and saying it's okay that they have those thoughts, but to come to them with a form of love and laughter. You know, I think for me, my free will is just allowing to see what's going to happen the next day, the next hour. You know, I have kids right now that are homeschooling, and you know, one that does it, one that I have to, you know, come on, let's do it. But, you know, we started playing scavenger hunts at home so that we would be laughing, because I think, you know, laughter is something that can all heal us. And, you know, it's interesting when you were talking also about, you know, the cousins thing. I think this isolation is actually making people more connected, because we do have these amazing devices now and these technologies to have these kind of group chats and to talk with people. And it's interesting because I've connected with people that I've never known and have made some now amazing friendships, you know, in my own community that I would never have met them had I not started joining these other social media things and discussions and meditations. And so I think it's actually causing people to change, but also I think it's also causing people to start reflecting on who they are as a person, just like the one man said, where, you know, he realizes he's not, you know, what he thought. And, you know, and I said to my friend, you know, today also, I said, you know, I believe that every day we become something better, you know, because we have so much to learn and to grow, and, you know, to help people, to, you know, anything that we can do. I think that's the best that we can do. I mean, and sometimes it's just smiling at that person as you're walking by and, you know, commenting, hey, that mask looks really good on you, right? You know, and so I you know, I guess I'm just more of I'm a happier person now for some strange reason, even though I've always been a happy person, but now I have this sense of calmness about me.
Thank you. That's a good segue into our next session. And Janos, if it's okay, may I comment on what you shared as well? Would that be all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the man who spoke before you. Janos, can I comment on? Yeah, okay. Because I also wanted to especially thank you for sharing that, because the looking within sometimes has its painful moments. And when we do that and we experience those painful moments, that's a time where the evil inclination can try to, it's actually a very healthy thing to do, but the evil inclination tries to almost amplify that pain to discourage us from doing it. And so when we're feeling that level of discouragement, it's actually paradoxically an encouraging sign, because it means you've actually are making real changes and real transformation, and it will pass. We just can be gentle with ourselves and just remember our own divine spark. And it's a stage on the stage towards healing some of the things that we need to heal. So I very much appreciate what you had to say, and you know, we're all on that journey together, and we've all had those moments. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I was thinking about this idea of the path of least resistance when it comes to loving kindness, because loving kindness is doing something for someone else without expecting anything in return. And in many ways, I do think it does require leaving the path of least resistance. Now, as Jean pointed out to us, we might mindfully choose not to do something extra. And so it can be a free will, and that often or can be the right choice on many occasions. But other times we might choose to help out. Like there's a classic Mussar example. If I'm out somewhere, back when we used to go out to like parties and we'd run into people, if I see my neighbor there and offer them a ride home, that's not really considered an act of loving kindness because I don't need to go out of my way. I mean, it's a good thing to do, but if I didn't offer my neighbor a ride home and make them call it an Uber, that would kind of make me into a jerk. So it's kind of doing just what's expected. But if someone's there who I just met that night and lives on the other side of town, and I offer to give them a ride home, that would be considered an act of loving kindness because it's really going above and beyond. So one of these concepts that's related to that is in this next bullet, that the world rests on three things: Torah, service of God, and acts of loving kindness. So if we think about this idea of building the world with loving kindness, what does that mean? And how might that relate to this this example I just gave of giving someone a ride home who lives across town?
I have something, Shelley, here. So again, I'm a
So
hairdresser.
let me just pause you for just a sec.
Okay.
Let me just give some people need a moment to think, and let
Okay.
me just give someone else a chance to share who we maybe haven't heard from yet.
Okay.
I think an act of loving kindness. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, Ellen, I sure
Oh,
can.
great, thanks. I think an act of loving kindness begins by losing yourself and putting yourself in the other person's position and really hearing them and finding out what they need. And maybe if you're capable of fulfilling that need, that isn't even an act of loving kindness. It's just part of being human. I think, I mean, if they need understanding, you can certainly give them time and listen to them. And that could be an act of loving kindness.
Absolutely.
And certainly, I'm in a position now, I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable, of being able to help some other people who are in a terrible position right now. And just knowing that, and like sending the big check to the cleaning lady, you can do it even though they're not coming, and just call them and see how they're doing. That's a nice thing. And to try to tell your friends who are also really comfortable, I mean, they're not struggling in any way, to do the same thing. I think that's a very nice thing that everybody can do now. And it makes me feel, I mean, no act of loving kindness is selfless, because you always feel better if you do something nice. So it's not, you know, it's not an act of loving kindness, it's self-love to do nice things for other people, I think. You know, it makes me feel good, so.
Yeah, the rabbis, thank you, Ellen. The rabbis actually had a big, long discussion about that. It's like, well, if you feel better when you do it, does it count as an act of loving kindness? And the answer from the rabbis is, if you're doing it only so that you can feel better, it doesn't count as an act of loving kindness. If feeling better is a side effect of doing this. Because I think what you talked about earlier is really thinking and understanding about what the other person needs and going to those links. That's more than just trying to get a little adrenaline hit or a little approval from somebody for doing something for them.
Because I think being
Greg,
older, you can do those things. You're in a position of, you already work, you can reflect and share more when you get older. You're not so busy.
Yeah, thank you.
It's hard.
Greg, I'm wondering about the whole idea of loving kindness, because in Hebrew it's gmilut chasadim, and in gmilut chasadim the word love is not mentioned. This is an interpretation of the translator, which means that gmilut chasadim is charity work, is acts of charity, is acts of kindness, charity, and the word love, ahava, is not mentioned there. And I think that maybe, then when love is not there, we talked, okay, so you're not doing it for self-love, or you're not doing it for the sake of love, that type of love, but you are doing it as an act of charity. So it's an interesting way just to look at the words and what do they mean, and what does the word chesed mean, that is also part of the sfirot of the Kabbalah, to actually look at this understanding of it's not about, okay, you reward, but it's about part of the daily teaching of how to be in the world, or how to be a mensch, if this makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's always how do we translate chesed? It's not it's not like a one-to-one term that we can do, but it is very much, as you say, it's about acting. It's not about thinking, oh, I should, I feel bad for those people, or God, I wish things gets better for them. It's like what Ellen said. You know what? I'm gonna write a check to the cleaning person because they're really hurting now, and they need this money more than I do, even though they're not cleaning here.
Sometimes it's hard to know what other people need, and you want to do something, so you do something hoping that by just acknowledging, by just saying thank you for what you do. I wrote a little note to my postal carrier saying thank you. I hope that it lifted his day a little bit, because that's got to be a thankless job at this point.
What a wonderful thing to do. Thank you. Sherry, you had something you wanted to contribute earlier. You want to?
Yeah, so I had a client contact me and say, I was supposed to be getting my hair done today, and I'd still like to pay you. And I was like, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I said, but I'm okay. I'm financially okay. Everything is fine. I was going to take a vacation anyway, so this is my stay vacation. And so I said, how about you take that contribution that you were going to give to me, and we buy something for the hospital staff, go buy them Tim Hortons. And I had another scenario where a friend had just rented an apartment and there was no furniture, and his friend had come into the city, and she was staying with her aunt who was elderly, and she started having symptoms. And so he offered up his place. And so when he told me that, I was like, well, there's nothing there except for a Murphy bed. So I actually went out and got the whole place set up for her. And he was like, I can't believe you did that. And I said, well, you know what? If I was in this scenario, I hope somebody would do this for me, because I said, I'm not doing this with intent. I'm doing this because this is just what you do when somebody needs help, And so, and I'm very grateful, that, she was able to spend her 2 weeks, with a brand new comforter, with all those things, and that I was financially able to do that for her. And like I said, when I do things out of act of kindness, I don't do it with an intent. I do it because that's just who I am. I said, I'm always giving love to people and trying to help out anybody that, so. Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you. Well, that's a good segue to our spectrum of loving kindness. We each have our own sort of natural place where we sit, and some of us may just naturally be more on the kind of giving and thinking of other people side. Other people may be more, you know, it's just not part of their their natural space. And what we do by focusing on these and practicing and taking mindful action is we can shift ourselves along the curve here. You know, if we're too much to one side, we can come back towards the middle or vice versa. What are the dangers of the extremes? What happens if we have too little chesed or too little loving kindness? And how might that show up?
Greed.
Greed?
I would think you'd be greedy. You start hoarding things. It's the people that go out and buy toilet paper for stupidity reasons. I don't understand that. The whole toilet paper thing.
Share, thinking excessively of the self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hoarding. Excellent. Thank you.
Thoughtless words. Not watching your language, not thinking about how what you say is going to hurt others or not.
Right. True.
Thank you, Carol.
On the spectrum of excessive doting, not having healthy boundaries. That's when you're, it goes back to what I said before, actually not taking care of yourself when you want to pay too much attention to others and allowing them not to respect your boundaries. If you have them.
You know, I'm going to fill up this other person's apartment with my own furniture. You know, and I can sit on the floor. And it's like, well, that's not so healthy either. You know, or to not respecting boundaries, that can cover a lot of ground. But absolutely, if we don't have a sense of who we are and what we have to give and what we don't have to give. Yeah, can someone maybe who we haven't heard from yet read the mantra for this soul trait, which is above the spectrum?
I'll do it. Sustain others without the thought of reward, even if they do not deserve it.
Thank you. Thanks, Bonnie. So what is that going too far? Or what does that bring up? Why might we want to frame a mantra in this way? Or is that not a good way to frame it?
Well, this is Irene. We can't really judge if they deserve it or not. That would be one thought.
Yeah, if you're worried about whether they deserve it, you're in the realm of judging. Absolutely. That's a dangerous realm to be in, because who really knows?
It's also like mental bookkeeping. If they've done this for me, then I'll do that for them. And I don't think that's what this is really about.
It's actually about unconditional love. So love that depends in something, that something is cancelled, is cancelled, and the love that doesn't depend in something is not cancelled. And this is from Pirkei Avot. So the whole idea that we're talking about unconditional love, it's not condition. It's not that somebody deserves it or doesn't deserve it. It's part of the humanness.
When I first saw the word loving kindness today, the thing that jumped out of it for me was kin, K-I-N. And one of the three principles I've been using in this time to pop me out of any state I get in is the principle of forgiving, with a hyphen in it, forgiving. And so when I look at this spectrum, it's like be in a state of forgiving to your kin, but include yourself as your kin as well. in an equal fashion to the rest of the kin. And the other two principles I was using were gratitude, that I see as a contraction of great attitude, and allowing. And what I see that as is, if you don't allow all, you're left with ow, and both for myself and for others. And it's really like including myself equally in the same plane with others that bring me to the point of the middle point of the arrow.
I love those, all of those examples, Sundari. Thank you. And it reminds me a little bit of a challenge that I have. I have a very good friend who tends to disappear from time to time. And, you know, I'm sort of in one of those times with her where I've sent sort of 2 text messages and 2 emails, and, you know, the last one was in December and I just didn't hear back. And, you know, when this has happened in the past, and I'm like, oh, did something happen? It's like, no, I got busy, and oh, I'm so glad to hear from you. So I'm a little PO'd at them, but I've really been thinking that maybe this is the time to kind of reach out again, more of as an act of loving kindness. It's like, hey, it's really, yeah, the ball is in their court, but I am concerned about them, and I do want to know what's going on. And maybe this is an act that I can do, right? Even though it's not my turn, even though I'm going to reach out anyway.
You know,
yes.
Well, yeah, this is, you know, about not receiving an reward. That could maybe not just be a material reward, but not expecting the hope for outcome. Like, for instance, the example you gave is that person may contact you and respond, or that person may not. And I think very often, what we have to do sometimes is to give ourselves, you know, put out the loving kindness, and regardless of what the outcome may be, and letting go of the outcome, because it's loving kindness that's perhaps most important.
Yeah. And a good point, Jack. And it sort of reminds me of that, without the thought of a reward, because as soon as you're thinking about the reward, then you're into an outcome. And you make a wonderful point.
Yeah.
We're going to do something to sustain someone else, and we're going to think about what happens next, or we're going to accept whatever outcome happens.
There's also, can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, there's also the idea of not giving so much that you put yourself at a disadvantage, because you can drain yourself. I mean, somebody brought that up earlier, that in the airplane, it says take care of yourself first, because then you'll be able to take care of someone else.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to remember that you don't have to be kind at the expense of yourself.
Thank you, Irene. Okay, well, I'm getting us into our breakout groups a little bit late today, but I want to make sure that we have at least a couple minutes for that. And as our point to kick off the discussion is the saying from Hillel, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? Yet if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? So right now, when we're feeling the stress of this moment, which might bring survival instincts to the forefront, I like you with your partner, and I'm going to stop the share and start the breakout rooms, just to kind of talk about where you are, and you know, how these kind of competing impulses have shown up in your life. So I'll have just a couple minutes. So try to talk for like a minute and a half each. You should see a join breakout room up on your screen. So just click join the room. Okay, I see everybody's busy joining away. Let's see, Diane and Carol, I see you are still here. Okay, I am going to move a couple of people around. I hope that was the right room. Yes, it was. Let's see, anybody else on their own? Okay, I think that means that we are all set. Oh, Diane. Diane, are you going to join? I'm going to move Ellen to a different room. Hey, Ellen, I was just about to move you to another room because someone, the other person didn't join your room. So let's see, how do I do this? I'm going to move you to another room here. Okay, so you should have a new indicator up on your screen. And for those of you watching live, so Ellen, if you hit the join room again, it should send you to another room. Okay, there we go. I am now going to start sharing again because this is where we do what I call the hidden teaching. So I'm going to share my screen once again. And this will take us to a reading from Shlomo Wolbe, who was one of the great Mussar masters of the 19th century. And what he had to say about this idea of love and kindness, it's funny, it really tracks with a lot of the discussion that we've had today. So if a person wants to be a person of chesed, they must train themselves to see and hear what the other person lacks. That was, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said that, but that was one of the first points that came up today. Really being aware of somebody else. I was at a great meeting at my synagogue last night by Zoom for mental health tricks to kind of deal with today. And when we're inside, the idea is we're kind of always looking down and always focusing on ourselves. And we're outside, we see the sky and we see the world around us. And this ability to kind of see and hear what the other person lacks is really key. When we're looking at ourselves, we can get caught up in trying to fill our own needs. You know, I'm lacking something and or I'm worried I'm going to be lacking something, so I'm going to buy up all this toilet paper and hoard again, like we were thinking about. And if we get so caught up in ourselves, then we can't notice the needs of another person. So especially at a time like this, when our own needs are kind of at the forefront, be it our loneliness, be it our fear, be it our isolation, it's very normal to have to deal with those kinds of feelings. The challenge is to make room for someone else. And ironically, well, it's not ironic. And again, as we talked about today, if you do things for other people, it can help make you feel better. I can't go over and hang out with my friends, but I can reach out to that friend who I have not seen in a few months, who I have not heard back from, who I'm wondering about. And if I kind of stay focused on myself and my own hurt feelings and I've told them a million times that it really hurts the relationship that they don't get back to me. That's all about me. You know, I have no idea what this other person is going through. And often stuff has happened. Like when they fall off the face of the earth, it's like, oh yeah, I was really sick. So I really am going to reach out to them and see how they're doing. Let me take a little time check here and see where we are. Okay, I am going to start bringing everyone back. I hate to do it so quickly, but I do think it is important that we respect the 5 o'clock time, even though I'll have some additional time afterwards to let people kind of hang out and we can talk with one another. During this time, I'm going to go back to the speaker view, I guess, because in the film, this is what is going to be shown. If you're watching this later, you're more than welcome to email me, greg@americanmussar.com, or if this is on Facebook, you can message me or leave a message in the, either make a comment or message me with your thoughts, and I would love to get back to you. Okay, I'm seeing some people starting to come back. How were those conversations? What were some of the things that came up? Anyone care to share?
It's Jean, and I really like talking, and now I'm forgetting her name because I saw her, but she didn't see me because I'm having a bad hair day. And but now remind me who I was speaking to, because I love connecting with this person. It was really nice doing the breakout thing.
It was me, it was Gail.
Gail, I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you. So just on the level of making a connection with a new person, somebody talked before about making new friends, and that felt really, really good. A highlight of the day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad hair days going around. I just ordered a clipper for myself, which is going to be 2 weeks. 2 weeks to come. So my hair is going to be getting, really hippie-ish for me, since my hair has been short for the last 20 years.
I mostly have a no hair day.
Thank you, Janice. Lois, did you want to share something? Lois, I thought I saw your hand raised.
Oh, she's on mute. Unmute yourself, Lois.
Lois, did you want to?
Lois, oh. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, well, I had a lovely partner. I've already forgotten her name, but she was extremely positive and felt like when we come out of this, we'll all be closer. We will be more conscious of the earth. And I'm not as totally positive about that as she is, but it's a very nice direction to think about. And there is a lot of closeness happening that actually doesn't happen when we can really just see people when we want.
Yeah. Thank you, Lois.
I'd like to thank Lois for that.
If there was ever a good time to hang out with positive people, this is a good time to do it.
Greg?
Yeah.
Greg, it's Carol. I'd like to thank Lois for her lovely comment. She forgot my name. Lois, I'm Carol.
Okay, I'm glad to.
I'm glad to know you too. Thank you.
I'm glad you got to know each other. As we get ready to close, I'm going to share my screen one more time. And I want to leave you with a couple of ideas. One is, these are kind of the 4, if you ever study chesed, there are classic ways of practicing chesed, like visiting the sick and clothing the naked and comforting the bereaved and burying the dead. And these are all things that are hard to do and are very much going above and beyond. The idea I want to leave you with, though, is like right now, a lot of things which might be just a normal part of our practice might be going above and beyond, like being polite to other people in the household, or being a little extra patient, or being a little bit tolerant, because we are under so much stress, especially with the people we care about, and we're in close quarters and we're getting in each other's ways. Sometimes just allowing a snarky comment to pass might be an act of loving kindness that we can do, or holding back a comment which maybe normally we wouldn't say, but under these times of stress, we find ourselves needing to, sort of on the tip of our lips. Those absolutely count as well. Going back to Jean's point from earlier, these are, we don't need to be productive now. I want to come back to, we need to survive. And part of surviving is giving ourselves a break and making sure that we are, loving who we are, and just realizing, I'm in rabbinical school now. I had all kinds of homework today. I was preparing this, and I'm like, you know what, I got to take a nap. I took a nap for an hour today. I'm behind in my reading, but you know what? I feel a lot better for having taken the nap. Now, in closing, before we do our meditation, I want to just leave us with some ideas for things that we can do for acts of loving kindness. Can I have a volunteer to read these, please?
I'll read. Say yes to help. Do more than your share at home. Love work less. Forgive someone out of loving kindness, even if you think they are at fault and should make the first move. Visit or call someone who is sick.
Thank you. And in the blog post, I had some other ideas that are more germane to where we are right now, and also some ideas for self-care. Part of survival, if that's an extra bubble bath, a nap, those are really key and important things to do right now as well. Okay, so as we close, I invite you once again to close your eyes. Relax. Allow your face to smile and open your jaw a little bit and tilt your head back. And just focus on the light filtering through your eyelids. This is the light of your divine spark. That bit of goodness that is always with you, that can never be taken away. Feel the love and the warmth and acceptance of who you are. Right now, here today, in this moment. Let's all have a moment of gratitude for this opportunity to share the sacred space together in community. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you will come back next week, and these sessions are open to anyone of any age, of any religion, of any ethnicity, so please feel free to invite a friend if you like. If you want to be on the email list, come by AmericanMussar.com, and there's a sign up you can find under the Mussar Community Gathering. And I'll hang out for a couple more minutes if anyone has any comments or questions. I'm going to stop the recording and the live now. And yeah, so have a wonderful week.
Thank you very, very much, Greg.
Shabbat Shalom.